comes to U.S. immigration, Canadians have several benefits over nationals from other countries due to treaties and agreements between the United States and Canada. One of the primary benefits of being Canadian is Canadians are what are referred to as visa exempt. This means in most circumstances, Canadians are not required to obtain a visa at a U.S. consulate or embassy abroad prior to traveling to the United States. Canadians can simply present a valid Canadian passport at a port of entry and demonstrate that their purpose for entry to the United States is temporary for pleasure or for temporary business purposes. And they're admitted into the United States for trips of up to 6 months per trip or 6 months throughout the year of traveling back and forth to the United States. Another advantage of being a Canadian is Canadians qualify for work visas in the United States under the USMCA, under the TN occupations list, or TN status is what it's referred to as. Not a TN visa because Canadians don't need a visa. It's actually a status for them. So a Canadian entering the United States with a valid passport would be admitted in TN status to work in the United States, not subject to a lottery for a TN. They issue as many TNs a year as individuals can apply and qualify for. So as long as you're qualified to work in the United States under an occupation, uh, under the TN occupations list, you can apply directly at a port of entry or through pre-flight inspection in order to work in the United States for a U.S. employer or a U.S. client under TN status in the United States. And one of the advantages of a TN is it has indefinite renewals. Also, if for some reason your stay in the United States becomes permanent and you want to transition from a TN to a green card in the United States, it is possible through either family or employment as well. Another advantage for Canadians is they can process for L1 visas directly at a port of entry as well. Being visa exempt again, as long as the Canadian presents the proper paperwork at a port of entry, they can obtain L1 visa status at a port of entry. And L1 visa is advantageous for companies that are expanding into the United States and maybe they want to open a new office in the United States, or they already have offices in the United States and Canada and they need to transfer qualifying employees between those offices. That can be done directly at a port of entry, same day on the spot with the proper paperwork for a Canadian citizen. Also, Canadians can skip H-1B visa stamping. So let's say your profession doesn't qualify for an L1 or a TN visa and you need to go through the H-1B visa. Let's say you're the CEO of a company or that you're being hired to be a CEO of a company in the United States. Well, that's a managerial or executive occupation. If you're just starting for this company in the US and they need you to work for them, the H-1B is more than likely the fit for you. That means they would have to enter you into the H-1B visa lottery. And if accepted in the lottery, then as a Canadian, you do not require an H-1B visa stamp. You don't have to go to the consulate prior to being admitted in H-1B status. You can take your I-797 approval notice from USCIS directly to a port of entry and be admitted just like you would be admitted for an L1 or a TN with that I-797 approval notice. Also, if you're in the United States as a Canadian and let's say you were on a J1 visa, and you are subject to a 2-year foreign residency requirement because of that J1 visa. You would remain subject to the 2-year foreign residency requirement as a Canadian. However, since Canadians are visa exempt, they can depart the country and re-enter the United States to obtain a TN or an H-1B visa without having to first obtain a waiver of the 2-year foreign residency requirement. Huge advantage for Canadians. Now, if you further down the road you want to go from that TN or H-1B to a green card, the waiver would be required to go to U.S. permanent residency. However, since Canadians are visa exempt, they don't need the waiver in order to obtain TN or an H-1B visa, even if subject to a 2-year foreign residency requirement. Also, the E1 and E2 visas are available for Canadians who are already doing business in the United States. Let's say you carry on substantial trade in goods or services to the US and more than 51% of your business is conducted in the United States, then the E1 treaty trader visa might be available to you as a Canadian business or a Canadian business professional. The E2 visa is also available for those who have committed a substantial financial investment in a US business. Maybe you bought a business or you started a business in the United States. The E2 visa is for investors and allows those Canadian investors to come to the United States to manage or run their companies in the United States. And finally, one of the other advantages of being Canadian is Canadians can also apply for Nexus. And Nexus is a program that allows Canadians to be able to travel faster to the United States in Nexus lanes that are designated for Nexus travelers. And this is another huge advantage for Canadians to travel back and forth with ease to the United States. So being a Canadian citizen offers several advantages for US immigration. We handle immigration for Canadians coming to the United States on a regular basis. We know the ins and outs of how to help Canadians to live and work in the US. So if you have questions and you're a Canadian and you want to know what immigration options you have for the United States, give us a call. We'd be glad to help you out.